Earning an executive MBA at Georgetown isn't the path of least resistance, but it does come with the greatest reward. Benefit from our strong alumni network, renowned faculty, DC location, and global residencies. Get started at choosegeorgetown.com/EMBA.
This is TJ Morris, and you're listening to ET Radio. Welcome aboard, all you ground troops spinning around smartly on the planet and off. We welcome you to Cosmos Radio, which is shared by TJ Morris ET Radio in Kentucky, United States of America, and Aquarian Radio in Maui, Hawaii. We appreciate everybody all around the world, no matter where you're at, no matter where you're located. We really appreciate you tuning in. We've got a wonderful guest tonight, and Janet and I are simulcasting, so let me let Janet introduce herself. Janet, you're live and on the air. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? Is it coming in good?
I can. I can hear you. How are you tonight?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good. I've been cleaning all day, so I'm coughing. Allergic to dust, yet I can't help myself. I have to clean. But I am excited about Bret Lueder. He's been on Aquarian Radio Network on the Revolution radio show called The Sacred Matrix on Sundays. I think he was on a month or two ago, and we had a great time. Dr. Les was with me at the time, and he's such a wonderful guest. I said, let's bring him on today's show. So I'm so excited he was able to clear out some time in his schedule. And what did you want to talk about me? Well, I'm a co-host with Theresa J. Morris and other people on the Aquarian Radio Network and Cosmos Radio Network. Excuse me. We TJ and I started the It's the Cosmos Conference back in 2012. It didn't quite come off, but the name Cosmos has stuck with us. So here we are on the Cosmos Radio and Aquarian Radio networks here tonight. And hey, do you want me to read a little bit about Bret, who he is, or where do you want to go before we bring him on?
Well, I've got what one of his friends sent me about Bret. You want me to read his bachelor's degree? Is that where you want me to start? I can do that.
Yes.
All right, Bret Lueder. Okay, folks. All right, we're really excited to have this guy because he's just full of information, so we can talk about whatever we want. But to give you a little background, this is Bret Lueder. We're going to bring him on here. He's received his bachelor's degree in journalism from Chico State University in 2000, and since then he has gone on to write roughly 700 articles on music, alternative history, spirituality, and UFOs for such magazines as Magical Blend Magazine, UFO Magazine, Reggae Festival Guide, and the Chico News and Review, among many others. Now, he's written 2 books, maybe more, but we'll start with these. The first is called Song in Your Heart, the story of the search for the lost note, Volume 1, in a 3-part series titled The Esoteric Guide to the Reggae Vibeseries, illustrating the role of the roots Reggae Rasta, or maybe Rasta. We'll let him talk in a minute about that, in terms of a global struggle for human consciousness. Now, Volume 2 gets a little heavier, Tales of a Heavy Heart, UFOs, magic, one of my favorite things, and Impending Doom. Ooh. And that's due out in late 2016, so we may talk a little bit about that as well. But I don't know if you guys have seen him or not, but right now in his most recent book, there's a wonderful UFO video out there where he explains a little bit about a UFO Hunter's Guide, and I believe it was back in L.A. He can talk about that because I just saw that, and I was so amazed. I said, we got to get this guy on here. And it just happened to be that I was working on bringing on, if you guys remember, John Tenuka and Javier Sandoval from the Sacramento conference. And John says, not a problem. I'll grab his bio and get his photo over to you. And then Janet called him on Facebook, and they got together. So here we are. Now, I believe he's going to tell us a little more about himself, but Lueder breaks down the muddled field of ufology into processable chunks, okay, both highlighting the field's infamous history, and I do mean infamous, although it is becoming rather famous with Bret here, and the context with which a ufologist finds themselves today. Now, I happen to be a ufologist, but a very lazy one, but I have been writing for many, many years for Dirk Van der Ploeg out of Canada, and I understand Bret has too for UFO Digest. Now, unlike any other book on the market, though, this guy is right on top of it. He has included tips from the pros, as many of today's top investigators contributed key facets of many techniques, okay, and maybe even some I've used as a legal investigator, but we'll talk about it. Approaches and strategies he uses for helping the investigator. He says it's pertinent to an investigator, and being that I have been a private investigator, a legal investigator, and a government investigator, this guy must know what he's talking about because he's the one that wrote the book, not me. So he's produced 2 double discs. I can't wait to get DVD sets of interviews with speakers. Got to get my EA together, but speakers from the Bay Area UFO Expo. And I believe that used to be by Victoria Jack, and I think Laurie and Fenton has picked that up, but I don't know. He can explain that too. This book is the Esoteric Guide to the Bay Area UFO Expo, Volumes 1 and 2. So that's a little bit, now just a tiny little window into his life. Janet, do you want to add any more?
I think we should let Bret, but I wanted to say you read that. That was so great. I loved your reading of his bio. Couldn't have done it by myself. But I've met Bret. We hung out at a couple different events, the latest being the Sacramento Experiencers Conference. And the experiencers are those folks who have some kind of contact with extraterrestrials or sightings, and the experiencers movement is getting huge. But I think it's about time to bring on Bret so Bret can talk about himself. So how about that? To the show.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing him on my thing to get some more network sound in here, because he's going to have to talk, folks, from Skype onto our show. So we'll see, Jan. I'm going to have to keep my phone up close because I couldn't get my Skype set up on the internal, but we'll see how this goes, okay? Janet, let me know. Bret, we're going to do a test real quick. Go ahead and talk.
Okay. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Can you hear me?
Would you like to tell us a little bit more about this, yourself, or we can just get going with the show? But welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you, both of you, for having me. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. I'm doing wonderful. I'm sitting here pre-contactee support group meeting of Lori McDonald here in Sacramento, California. And so doing this interview just is a great warm-up for the meeting. So thanks for having me on.
So Lori has these meetings in Sacramento. Are they weekly, monthly? How often does she do this?
They're monthly meetings. That's right. And you have to sign up on the guest list. Very exclusive, 25 to 30 people only, and everybody's got a story to tell. It's a really great place to be. I love being here every month.
What's her format? How does she do this? What's
it's real casual. Bring some food, and she kind of just starts off talking about recent cases or something has come up in her therapy earlier in the week or earlier in the month. She'll want to talk about that if it's pertinent for some reason. And then people are welcome to share their own stories and are encouraged to do so. People have said that I'm not a UFO investigator for no reason. It's not just because I'm interested in it. And I've had people tell me they've seen me on ships. I've seen UFOs. I possibly have missing time. So the implication is that I'm studying this stuff because it's happened to me. It's affected me in some way. But really, I don't really have anything conscious to say about that other than, if it's happened, I don't remember. But everyone else here, let me tell you, has got a really awesome story. And,
okay, go ahead.
I'm fascinated by how the different people deal with a wide variety of situations, none of which actually fit into what we call normal society. And so each one deals with this stuff in their own way. And I just, that's fascinating, not just as a researcher, as a journalist, but as a human being, see these people cope with real deep levels of emotional trauma. And then having to deal with the external world on top of that. So really great to be here. Everybody feel honored to be here. I think we have a speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's Lori
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted you. Sorry.
I'm sorry if I was butting in because I was curious because you're saying they have traumatic. Are they getting to have traumatic experiences more, or are they getting lighter? Because what I saw at the International UFO Congress is that people were having better experiences. They were more spiritual and heart-centered, and they felt good about it. But are you saying that at Lori's group they're having more traumatic experiences? Am I hearing you correct?
Well, I think that all the experiences are happening across the pantheon. It just depends which ones are coming up area, I guess. I personally have been dealt more of the darker cases myself. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe I'm attracting that to myself somehow. But there's good cases too. There's positive stuff coming through. I don't think those warrant as much attention because it's just like with the news. Who wants to hear about good news as much? Most people want to hear about what's going wrong. Maybe that's just a basic human psychological thing. I'm not sure. But as far as I can tell, all the full range of cases is still going on.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And then you said something else. Who's speaking tonight? You said Lorian Fenton is speaking tonight?
That's correct. Lorian Fenton's going to be talking tonight for Lori McDonald at her meeting. And she started to have speakers more for like the first hour of the meeting. And I spoke for her a few months ago, got things kicked off, and I think she's kind of changed her format a little bit in that when she can get a good speaker, she'll have them in. And as I'm sure you're well aware, Janet, Lorian's story is pretty incredible. And, you know, something happened to her that I just scratch my head. You know, I don't know how some people cope with this stuff, and I admire and respect these people, how they deal with it, and each their own way, because all of them are still functional in society. But what they have to go through to be functional, it's extraordinary.
Mhm. You were at the event in Sacramento, and then I presented in the morning. Did you happen to listen to my story?
You know what? I missed that because I was going to be emceeing the whole day, both days, and I jokingly said to Lorian, Lorian, you only want me to do the afternoon ones, right? You know, just because she knows I like to sleep in. So she went and got another MC. So I missed yours. I was up really late that Friday night because you spoke Saturday morning, I'm pretty sure.
I did, and I was wondering who saw it because it seems like all my friends missed it, so they'll only know my story. And I'm encouraging TJ to get her story done. We're going to do her PowerPoint. I think doing a PowerPoint is how it concretizes it in your mind. And who was that? Robert Farrell, this other fellow, said, just do your PowerPoint, and then you can take your PowerPoint and make a book. So when I was doing my PowerPoint, as I started looking at all the different episodes, my PowerPoint presentation went from like 100 slides to 400. And I said, boy, this is a whole weekend. Because it's like the Russian dolls or the layers of an onion. The memories just start coming and coming and coming. But at my point, when I look at my story, because it's like I've come out through the looking glass on the other side of the yellow brick road, and it's a positive experience. But there are times in my life that I saw it or perceived it as a negative, but that's only because, you know, my cat, when you take her to the vet, she thinks that guy's a monster, right? But if the cat had the awareness of a human, she would realize, oh, the vet's just trying to make sure I don't have, you know, heartworm or cancer or something. So it's all a matter of perspective. So what I think is, you know, a lot of people have traumatic experiences just because it's out of the box, out of the ordinary. And once you have it, first of all, you have your perception of it because you don't understand it, but then you can't tell anybody. But now with these experiencer groups and support groups like Laurie has, and I'm hoping, as soon as I get my house back together, I'm going to start a support group once a month here in Maui, Hawaii. So I was very curious to Laurie's format because I spoke with her at the Sacramento conference, and we worked together. We did there were 3 simultaneous experiencer groups going on, the third person being Barbara Lamb, and myself, Janet Carolison, and Dr. Sasha Lesson did a support group, and Laurie did a third one. And then the last night, we combined Laurie's and ours together, and then Barbara still had her separate one. So anyway, what I see is that people really benefit from sharing their stories, even if they can get just, 3 to 5 minutes now and again to be witnessed. The witnessing process begins the healing process. But what you were saying when you started, you said that you don't know. Have you ever been regressed, hypnotized and regressed?
I have not successfully ever been, no.
Okay, so you say successfully. Was there an attempt and you weren't able to go deep enough?
That's right. Yeah, I've had a couple different people try to take me under, and it just doesn't seem to take. I think I have a natural reflex that just tries to resist it.
Well, some people, when they're hypnotized, don't even realize they're hypnotized. In fact, we go through life in a semi-hypnotized state all the time. If we watch a movie or television or even tune into music or something, we're hypnotized. In fact, we're probably hypnotized more often than we are in a subconscious state. In fact, being in the matrix is a form of hypnotism. So if you look at it from that perspective and you relax into it more instead of worrying about, losing control, and if they hypnotize me, they're going to make me go murder somebody or something. There's something going on that you don't relax into it. You see it's a fun exploration of your subconscious. And your subconscious can be explored whether you're hypnotized or not. You could even do a daydream, and then instead of censoring it, say, oh, that was an interesting daydream. But what was it? Where is it coming from? It's coming from you. It's coming from your connection to source and your subconscious. Anyway, that's just an aside. But if we're ever together, Dan, let's go off somewhere and let us see what we can get out of your subconscious. If you want.
I'll let you take a crack at it.
Dr. Lesson as well.
What's that?
It may take two of you. Let me get a pitch in here for Dr. Lesson real quick, folks. Dr. Alexander Sasha Lesson, Ph.D., has a master's in psychology and many, many years as an anthropologist. And I chose him to be in our organization for the Ace Folk Life, being that we handle a lot of pop culture, which includes paranormal and UFOs, and he agreed to do so. He has also manuals as far as teaching. He's taught at the University of Hawaii, and for many years he's now retired, and he and Janet for many years have done counseling out of their home and still do, including helping people with PTSD, that the people that need it, especially our veterans, which I am one from the U.S. Navy, and my husband just deceased, and Dr. Lesson and Jan both got to know he and I, and we personally didn't think we were part of the super soldier program, and we did not want to go in that direction with Lori and Fenton, and we hope we didn't hurt anybody's feelings, but that just wasn't what we wanted to do. And my husband did have PTSD until he passed on December 2nd, so everybody remember Thomas R. Morris. He was a commander on and off planet in what Janet calls the secret space program. To me and him, it wasn't a secret at all. But when you work in something and only people have a need to know, if you will, please read Dr. Philip Corso's book, not doctor, where am I? I got that from Janet, Dr. Lesson. But Dr. Lesson does Zachariah Sitchin's work, carries it on for him after he passed 10-9-10. And Colonel Philip J. Corso, retired with William J. Burns, has a wonderful book out there called The Day After Roswell. My uncle, Senator Strom Thurmond, just happened to have been in contact with Philip Corso at the same time he was talking to me when I was growing up and wanted me to come to Washington to be a page. So I got in on all the UFO stuff firsthand, but I'd already been abducted, I guess people think, which Janet's trying to get my book out. But so I'm talking to Philip Mantle right now with Flying Disc Press. And Philip's asked to bring on somebody. He asked me yesterday if he's in the UK, if I'll bring on a gentleman that just wrote a book called UFOs Over Poland. So please join our ACO. It is Alien Contact Organization. It's also Authors Club Organization, which have people like myself, Janet Lesson, and Dr. Alexander Sasha Lesson. Now, Janet, if I may, I'd like to take over with Bret, if you don't mind, now that you've got that little thing about Sacramento. And is that okay? Can I ask a few questions?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, it's okay? Okay,
yes,
thank you.
Please.
The reason is, folks, we have sort of an interesting syndication going on here. All right, I don't know if he can hear you, Janet, but now, because I'm talking directly into the phone and the computer, folks, interestingly enough, I think we all do this, including Lori at some of these IUFO Congress groups that these people will be going to, and we'll let Bret and Janet talk about that, or at least Janet in a few moments. Now, Bret, back to you. Would you like to share and let people get to know you? Just give us an idea of who you are, where you grew up, give us a background on you, because I only know what I've just heard right now other than that 2012 L.A. film I talked about, that video. So if you want to share up to that point and then tell us how you got to that book.
Okay. I grew up in San Jose, California, born in 1968. I'm 47 years old. and or so they say. And I grew up playing soccer in a middle-class family, and still play sports to this day, so that's kind of all stuck with me. I think I learned a lot of my life lessons through sports, and I was one of those regular kind of like aspiring to be Joe Montana, I think, at the time, All-American kid, Troy Aikman, Tom Brady, those kind of types. Society seems to produce those kinds. So I was in that kind of a mold, and I went to Chico State University out of high school for soccer, basically, because I didn't have that great of grades. And then I flunked out the first year of college, came back to San Jose, and it was really interesting 2 years in San Jose, living in the rat race. I saw my first reggae show. It was Burning Spear. That really opened my eyes to a whole different world out there. In those 2 years, I qualified for financial aid and went back to Chico State University to finish my degree in journalism with an option in public relations. I got that in 2000. I had my first UFO sighting when I was in college, and I can remember, I don't know if we have time for this whole story, but I just remember when I saw it, I was in the middle of nowhere, and I was thinking, oh crap, I can't get abducted now because I don't even have my degree. Everyone will think I'm a loser. I have to at least have my degree. So I jumped back in my truck and headed out. There's a whole other story before and after that, but I graduated with with this option in public relations under journalism, and it's just been uncanny how public relations has seemed to come back and apply to everything that I've done since, especially as a journalist, interviewing the wide variety of people that I've interviewed over the years, hundreds of people. And that gets me up to, going to the Bay Area UFO Expo, starting, I think it started in 98, but I think I got there in 99 for the second one. And I remember hearing Jordan Maxwell for the first time, and just being blown out of the water, seeing JJ and Desiree Hurtak, and getting exposed to the Keys of Enoch, literally green, coming out of the societal chutes. I was just a societal kid, product of society, and Coors Light commercials, bikinis in the snow, that whole thing. It's all just fiction. So anyway, I'm getting blasted by Jordan Maxwell in the first one, and boy, I haven't looked back since. I think the first book that, matter of fact, I know the first book that got me on my path was Fingerprints of the Gods in 95, and I was snowed in Tahoe, South Shore Tahoe, at my dad's house. He had recently passed, and I was there with my stepmom and my sisters, and my stepmom got me this book for Christmas, and I literally read the 450 pages of it, roughly, in 8 days, and I had never done that with a book before, ever. So I kind of took notice of that and thought, wow, that was kind of weird. From there I went to Jose Arguelles' The Mayan Factor, Path Beyond Technology, and I got a list of all the books that I've read since. I have hundreds and hundreds of books. And I'm not sure why, if I would have applied myself like that in college, I would have got straight A's. I'm not sure why things work out like that for people, but that Graham Hancock just really floated my boat. And I see he's going to be down at Contact in the Desert, Joshua Tree, this year. So I'm going to be sure to get down there and hopefully get to say hi to him. But, after years going to the Bay Area UFO Expo, I got to know Vicki Jack. I don't know if either of you two ever had the pleasure of meeting Victoria Jack. But what a sweetheart. She's got some health issues right now. I think she got attacked in her very last expo in 2010 at the Fairmont. A whole calamity of events happened.
Yeah, I got to meet her. I really liked her. She was a sweetheart. I got to meet Victoria Jack. She was a sweetheart. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been going there for years. She and I became good friends. I knew most of the speakers. I'd studied most of the speakers. I took it all in like a sponge. And oddly enough, Vicki Jack was approached by Wiser Books in San Francisco to ask her if she knew someone that could write a UFO book. And she She asked Ruben Uriarte first, and he was busy. As you guys might know, he's got his own book series with Noe Torres, very well-written UFO investigative reports. And then so it fell to John Rhodes then, Reptoids.com. And John Rhodes, many of you may be familiar with on his excellent coast-to-coast AM appearances. He's an excellent presenter. He said no. So Vicki asked me, hey, you want to write a UFO book? And so I pretty much jumped out of my seat, smile ear to ear. And, at that time, Victoria, or just before that, Victoria had gone through her own loss of her house through that mortgage crisis. She got really raw deal of this thing, and I couldn't help her. None of my friends could help her, and she lost her house. Well, in that process, I wound up getting all of her books. So all the speakers that had given her books for 10-plus years were now all of a sudden within a 20-foot reach of myself. And 2 years later, this book gets dropped in my lap. And I didn't get to title it, but I got to design it the way I wanted to. And as you read in my description, TJ, the book really is designed to help people kind of process a field that seems separate and muddled and confusing and contradictory, and it actually is all those things. But the attempt with the UFO Hunter's Guide is to bring it all together very simply with a quick overview of the background, quick overview of the landscape of the researchers, the top cases and the hot spots, and then bring in the pros with some just awesome tips. I just mentioned John Rhodes. He gave a great tip on how to use specialized maps when you're in an investigation. Ruben Uriarte gave some great advice on how to interview people, as well as Melinda Leslie. Both of those two tips, if you're a young investigator, if you're interested in this kind of stuff at all, if you're just trying to help your friends or family, maybe someone's had an experience, and if you just read those two tips, you'd be golden. You'd be ahead of the game in terms of how to interview people. So equipment, how to use a magnetometer, a telescope, where to look on the moon if you want to find stuff. Man, this book's got it all. So I basically wrote a book. Let me back up a second. I saw Peter Frampton talk one time about, he had Frampton Comes Alive was one of the greatest double live selling albums of all time. And then he brought them the second album, and the record company rejected it. And it's because he didn't try to duplicate the early success. He tried to he was an artist, and he wanted to do what he wanted to do. And so I think that applies somehow. I don't know, but I lost it. I feel like I'm rambling. Am I rambling, ladies?
No, not at all. I'm enjoying it. Plus, I'm a musician as well. Yeah, I sung the song in the beginning. That was all my voices except my one bass player. You didn't get to hear much of it. But I'm with Broadcast Music Incorporated, too. I'm not just an old investigator, old military, old man in black girl or woman in black. I actually started in music, so I'm getting you, man. I mean, I love all genres of music. And I've done a few festivals, music, and got a few CDs under my hat, so no, I'm listening. And people don't understand how we can be UFO enthusiasts or ET contactees and working on and off planet and love music. And I can tell you one time, Bret, the room started spinning. We hit some notes on my Atlantis Oracle, and only Janet, maybe a few know, but the room started spinning, man. So I think we can do something, and I would love to investigate that with you sometime. But I also want to talk to you not only about your music and how you know about portals opening in various locations with music, but I heard you had some Kawani Lepsaritis stuff going on that 2012 thing. So, you're doing fine, but keep going on your music connection, because we can get into particles and waves and sounds, and, there's not much sound out there in space. A lot of people don't know that, but if it's still, once you get on a spacecraft, it depends. You can be a multidimensional being and go to all these other worlds. So I told Janet I want to have you back once people get to know you with our Alien Contact Organization group and get you, get your feet wet hit. Then I want to get into some really deep subjects. Apparently we won't have time today. But we still got about an hour and a half. I don't know how much time you got. So right at your music, what inspired you to cross over? I mean, you're obviously talking to us, and you've done this on that 2012 YouTube for L.A. You brought in your music and your magic. Is that sort of a good segue? Music and magic?
Well, I wanted to just add that I was the band for years.
Subject, music, UFOs, and magic, are really all connected through consciousness. And this is a very fundamental thing that I realized when I was under tutelage of one of my teachers. I've had a few really good teachers. I had several teachers, but a few really good ones. In particular, this one was Serona Knight. She's a Guidonic Druidic priestess, author of 40-plus books. I learned a lot of stuff while I studied with her. And it was during that time I began to formulate my own vision of what magic was, because everyone seemed to have their own definition or fall back on the famous Arthur C. Clarke definition, paraphrasing, high technology to a primitive society would look like magic. I forget the exact quote, but that's essentially what he was trying to say, was that there is no magic, it's just higher technology that we don't understand at the level we're at. So what we would see as magic is really, I'm sure Janet, matter of fact, I just got through reading Anunnaki False Gods, Dr. Sasha and Janet's, one of their recent books. And what they would use as technology would be described as magic by the humans. And so that makes a lot of sense. But still, I didn't get why there would be someone in a black hat and a robe holding a wand in a ritual with setting the four corners and drawing a circle and, this whole business. And so what I deduced after studying many different traditions and studying with some Indians, especially local Indians, Northern California Indians, and they weren't always very pleasant, but the ones I worked with were tolerant of me, and I was very grateful. But what I learned was, and this applies to Christianity and Buddhism and Islam, whatever, all of human traditions really revolve around three things, and that's rituals, symbols, and intention. And what I determined was that these were the tools of manifestation, or the tools of binding, as I described, if you remember from my lecture in 2012. And I took that even a little bit further, and that everything a human does, really, involves manifestation and the usage of the three tools: rituals, symbols, and intention. So whether you have a cap on with a robe and a magic wand, and you're got the sage out and the athame and whatever tradition you're doing, and you're doing it on the altar, whatever, whether you're doing that or you're getting up and walking to the kitchen for a sandwich, in that mundane example, walking to the kitchen for a sandwich, in your head you have a picture excuse me, you have a picture of what you're going to do. It happens in a flash of a second, but it's still there. That picture itself is a symbol. And so that's the symbol that you have with the intention that you wanted, and then the ritual would be walking to the kitchen and doing it. And so I realized that that's what they mean when they say human beings are magical beings. And you hear this throughout New Age literature, channeled material. We're magical beings. We have to realize who and what we are to ascend, to make a long story short. And so that's why I was so focused on what magic was. And so what I determined was that it's the actual crux of the biscuit, as John Belushi might say. Or no, that was Frank Zappa, sorry. Crux of the biscuit. Rubber Biscuits was John Belushi and the Blues Brothers. Anyway, I'm getting my biscuit references mixed up. But magic turned out to be the central issue, and what governs magic other than consciousness? So consciousness and magic are really what human beings are here to do. We're here to use magic and manifest as our Creator manifested before us. We're just ripples in the pond using the same tools our Creator did to manifest the future or each next step in our daily routine or whatever event we're trying to control or to direct the outcome of, however you want to say it. I like to use the Christian tradition or the Christian metaphor of where God was with the Word, and then His intention was to create creation, and then He spoke the Word, which is the physical action in this world, the ritual. So God's using ritual symbolism and intention according to the Christian tradition. So we're just here like little mini gods trying to recreate more of what's already been created. That's getting a little esoteric, but I realized that writing this my first book, Song in Your Heart, The Story of the Search for the Lost Note, that when guys like, say, James Gilliland or Timothy Green Beckley or others from the early part of James isn't so much from the early part, but Timothy Green Beckley actually goes back quite a ways. But these guys were communicating with UFOs by flashing lights 3 times. And, you know, if you studied any kind of magical traditions, you realize 3 times consecrates or initiates. That's magical language right there. You mentioned Kiwani Lapsaritis a little earlier. I had 4 trips up to see Kiwani over about a 6-year period. And the first night I was there, this is the most popular story. I think I told this in that lecture. We were down in the porch, and it was pitch black out, and this thing started hooting at us from out in front of us, and it hooted at us 3 different times. Again, initiation, or hello, maybe in this case, acknowledgement. It goes to, after that, it goes to a different spot and does 3 more, and then to a third spot and does 3 more, and so that's 9. So if you know your basic numerology, 9 is completion. So it gave me 3 sets of 3, and that was their hello to me. And that was another mind blower because that just seemed to fit right into my overall thesis that consciousness in this universe manifests with the 3 tools: rituals, symbols, and intentions. So, you know, if the big feet are doing it, if human cultures are doing it, if that's what humans do, it makes sense that if we're going to contact or communicate with or interact with in any way, really, with a UFO or an alien, we're going to have to understand rituals, symbols, and intentions. And so I kind of spun all that stuff and more into the first book, Song in Your Heart, The Story of the Search for the Lost Note. And I don't think you're going to find any other book quite like it. Every few chapters I throw in a sidebar, which is an article that I had published in a previous magazine somewhere. That's basically how I started cutting my teeth in all this. After I read Fingerprints of the Gods, I saw an ad in the paper. I just got in a car accident. Let me back up. I was heading down to the Bay Area to be a salesman, and apparently throw my life away drinking coffee and having donuts and living in the rat race like a lot of the male people on both sides of my family had done. Although successful financially, you know what I mean? They weren't very long-lived. A couple of them were, but a lot of them heart attack, overweight, alcoholics, that kind of thing. So I got into this accident, slowed me up for about 2 months, and I saw an ad in the paper they needed writers at this local music magazine, and they were willing to offer free beer and tickets to go see a show and write about it. So, of course, I called a buddy and said, we're going to a show for free tonight. And that was back in October of '96. The band was Dred Zeppelin, a band that exclusively combines Elvis, Bob Marley, and Led Zeppelin music in just an awesome way. There's no other band like them. The lead singer is a fat Elvis impersonator, and just awesome stuff, great entertainment. But I haven't looked back ever since. That was October of '96, and well, that's what happened. I was a new guy at the paper, Synthesis magazine, and nobody could understand the reggae guys when they came through town because their patois was so thick. You could only understand every other word or so. So they asked me if I wanted to interview this guy named Family Man. He's from the Wailers, and I go, from the Wailers? Wow, that was Bob Marley's band. Even I knew that. And so I said, sure. Well, I wound up just doing a lot of yeah, yeah, really? Oh. And he just talked, So I was able to record it, and then I went to a local reggae guy and had it translated. And so that's how it started. And what came of that first interview from the bass player of the Wailers, his name is Aston Family Man Barrett, seemed to parallel what guys like Graham Hancock were saying, or Jordan Maxwell, about a New World Order conspiracy and how mankind or modern society was changing the earth and going outside of God's law and creating havoc in nature, this kind of thing. And so I started thinking, man, how would this guy from an island in the Caribbean know about the things I'm reading about in Western fringe scholarly culture? And because those guys don't read the kind of books that we read over here. And what I found out through my interviews was they don't really need to. Some do, but they don't really need to, because what they do is they drum. And when they drum, many smoke ganja, of course, but when they drum, they connect with their creator, or maybe as the shaman would say, your higher self, whatever it is. This is where they get their knowledge. So I was fascinated by this concept that this culture, this third world culture, could get the same information as Western fringe scholars. And on top of that, I realized that these third worlders were actually touring America with a specific kind of vibration, specifically geared to generate altered states of consciousness in the listener. And then they would, once they got the audience in a certain place, they would hit them with alternative information. It's really genius if you're trying to combat a global mentality of colonialism, let's say, of self-destruction, of pollution, war, fear. This is the general vibe on Earth. And these guys not only realized it without writing a bunch of 500-page books, but they are doing something about it. And so when I just realized that, I was fascinated. I knew I was going to be writing a lot about what these roots reggae guys were doing. I'm writing Volume 2 right now, and Volume 2 is titled Tales of a Heavy Heart, UFOs, Magic, and Impending Doom. And I'm just knee-deep in it right now. I love doing this stuff. I'm on weird sleep hours. I could stay up for 24 hours really just high on research and then sleep for another 24 hours. It gets that extreme sometimes. But I'm cranking it out. So that's where I'm at right now. I think I need to come up for air for a little bit, let one of you lovely ladies talk for a little bit.
Go ahead, Janet.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to
You there, Janet?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to add that Bob Marley and I share a birthday. February 6th, it's coming up. Happy birthday, Bob, and happy birthday, me. And let's see, you were saying some things about Terrence McKenna did the same thing. He would get everybody, well, actually, a lot of Terrence's raves, same information, different culture, and then he would introduce these concepts, and he was talking about panspermia and all these concepts that have helped awaken consciousness, back in the 80s and 90s. And I saw him in 97, his last appearance here in Maui. And I was brand new to this, and I go, what's this guy? Everybody's saying, you got to see Terrence McKenna. He's got a brain tumor. He's going to die soon. So I went down there, and I was still kind of new to everything, and didn't quite get it 100%, but I've heard a lot about his work, which was awakening consciousness in humanity through, getting people into trance, like trance dancing. And some of the people there were obviously, like on ecstasy or something, but I was just there in my own vibe, and I was getting, kind of stoned, just being in the energy, right? So I'm aware of that type of thing. It was fun.
Were they doing red hair or Pakalolo? What are they doing over there, man?
Maui's a very Pakalolo.
Oh, Maui Wowie. Maui Wowie.
That was Maui. It's probably a Maui Wowie. I'm a Maui Wowie hippie.
I don't know my stuff, huh, Jenny? Think this old lady don't know nothing, right? Heck. I'm really, born in the 50s, but I know a little bit of stuff, man.
You're in the Bible Belt, so what do you know? Anyway, you're high on life, TJ.
Hey, man.
So
she holds me because I'm in the Bible Belt, man. I was born in Louisiana, raised in Houston. Just, don't get lost in the forest for the trees about location. It's not everything location. It's cool, man. It's cool.
What do you want to say?
I'm pretty much had to be a straight shooter, is what she's saying. I was a straight shooter. Yeah, I was pretty good at it. So,
well, you were in the military, so that's
or what's up?
You were in the military, so you.
Bore you guys.
Yeah, go back to Bret. He's our guest star. Go back to Bret, but TJ, you were in the military, so you have a different perspective. But if you look at it wherever you go, you realize how connected it is. So, TJ had a military thing. I had. Maui, Wowie, hippy dippy, Pennsylvania, conservative. But everywhere you go, there's the extraterrestrial phenomenon as far back in time as you can go and into the now. And so that's connecting the dots. Go ahead. Back to you. I'm not making any sense either. TJ or Bret.
All right, where do you want to go, Bret? Because you need to get some water or anything? I can play a 2-minute or something, or a 3-minute, or whatever you want. Are you ready to go again?
For a little bit. Maybe 15 or 20, we could take a little break or something. Or maybe not. I don't know. I'm good to go right now.
Okay. Well, what would you like to talk about? You want to go where off the chart? Because we got all kind of people tuning in. I got a lot of my regulars for years. Jan, I've been doing this. I got over 520 registered here shows, but we've done probably 800 between the two of us on 2 different networks. And then she and I have both been with Revolution Radio and other places, other radio shows. But you know how this is. This is going to be archived right here, too, forevermore. So, and then I'm putting this on all my websites, and folks, you can find this on aliencontact.org website. You can find it on tjmorrisradio.com. You can find it on teresajmorris.com, my own personal. Should I put Bret on my own personal? I have to think about that one. I don't know how good of friends we're going to be.
Not on the speed dial. It's too much pressure.
And then, yeah, for real, man. And then let's see. We got Alien Contact. He's on Ascension Psychic because of his spiritual side, right? This magic and this spiritual, multidimensional beings. I really want to get there and see what his spiritual side is. So, you want to talk about your spiritual side, the God within and without? You sort of mentioned the God source, but everybody I hang out with these days in cyber culture, they're all really spiritual, not just paranormal, but spiritual. We have this phenomenology word. Are you into the phenomenology kick these days?
You mean the origin of words? That kind of thing?
Well, if that's what you want to call it, phenomenology and neuro and the mind. I guess a lot of consciousness.
Oh, okay.
But epistemology, you can go there if you want to. Whatever you want to do, wherever you want to take us, we're all here. We got all kind of friends listening. And, folks, we've got the chat room open. I just can't see it because I'm using Bret on Skype. Let me go over here and look for him. I'm going to shrink him down. Let me make sure the chat room's open for all our friends here and see what they're saying. And then
while you're doing that, okay, TJ? TJ, can you hear me?
I didn't hear what you said.
Let me ask Bret a question, okay, while you're going into the chat to look what's going on. So, Bret, what would you like to tell our listeners? What's the most important investigation you've ever had? What you think that should be conveyed to our listeners, to the world? What have you discovered?
Well, I wish I could say that I was one of those guys that had a nice, cheery ET guy come up and say hello, and we sit down and have tea and discuss all the issues of the universe. They impart wisdom, and I become psychic and heal all the people in the community. But that just hasn't happened for me. For some reason, more darker cases seem to come my way. I'm working on 5 cases right now, and it's really the only 5 serious cases I've really worked on. Otherwise, I've just studied a lot of stuff. I've studied many, many cases. But these happen to be all women, and they all have a variety of things, of dark things happening to them. what I've begun to explore, because we have been unable to stop some of these abductions by at least this one case. I won't mention any names, of course, but this whole idea that it's not aliens, that it's demons, or it's some kind of dark beings, whatever. There's a whole pantheon of hair-splitting dark beings that really you could just sum up as demons. So some information's come my way by way of a guy named Joe Jordan in Florida. He began to chronicle his contactees' testimonies and their contentions that shouting out the name of Jesus Christ stopped their abductions flat out. And so, being a Roman Catholic, or a recovering Roman Catholic, maybe is more correct, I had already rejected a lot of the Bible stuff when I became a teenager, when I began to think for myself and began to ponder logically some of the absurdities really that are in the Bible, like Immaculate Conception or stuff like that. Well, later on in life, I would start to study the UFO stuff and start to realize how maybe some of that stuff could be true. For example, the Hertax claim that it was ET intervention that happened for the Immaculate Conception. Okay, so little things would kind of creep back that maybe would bring me a little bit back on that biblical path, but it wasn't until I started doing the UFO abduction research that I really started to see that maybe there was more to that religious stuff than what I gave it credence. And or maybe I was just looking on a surface level, and I wasn't looking deep enough. But maybe it was there the whole time, of course, and I just didn't see it. I'm sure that's what happened. But later on, with different eyes, of course, we live, have more experiences, we see things differently. And this led me in my studies to well, let me just tell you the quick backstory. I'm trying to help this one girl in my hometown, Chico, and I was getting ready to go to my law study group, which I do every Wednesday night, and I study with the old guys. So we could talk law for hours and hours, if you really want to be bored. But I said a little prayer, hey man, I'm trying to help this girl. What do I do? If I'm barking up the wrong tree with the methods I'm trying, then just give me a sign, do something, whatever. So at the meeting later that night, two of the old guys happened to mention to me that there was this deliverance seminar or deliverance ceremony going on at this church in Yuba City, which is about 45 minutes north of Sacramento, and about that same distance, right in between Chico and Sacramento. So I decided to go down there, and when I went down there, I started to learn about these and I forget what they call themselves. They're not priests, they're not reverends, they're not pastors, but they're up there with the microphone dispensing the wisdom, and they've had some pretty neat experiences, you could say, with what they call demons and with their method or tradition of what they call deliverance, or if you're a Roman Catholic, you'd call it an exorcism. Maybe if you're a Native American, you'd call it casting out of an evil spirit. You find these traditions all around the world, but normally you wouldn't catch me dead near a church because I just figured there's so much lying going on, and as we're finding out more about the Pope, we're seeing just the nastiness of what the church can be, the pedophilia, not that there's anything wrong with homosexuality, but within that tradition, you're not supposed to do that, and they're doing all kinds of stuff against what they're teaching people. And so it's just contradictory whether you agree with that or not. So I'm down there at this church, and this guy, Jess Parker, gets on the horn and starts saying, okay, we're going to do this deliverance ceremony. Today we're going to cast out the demons of rejection. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I've never experienced something like this. I've seen this in the movies, maybe, or I think there was an episode of The X-Files where Mulder went to go see a spirit healer, and he grabs on the microphone and just kind of goes off like a used car salesman or like an auctioneer or something, And from one level, it looks really absurd, but, as a journalist observer there, who I had two friends, obviously, that went to that church, I was there to keep my mouth shut and just watch, okay? Believe me, learning how to keep my mouth shut has been one of the best skills I've ever learned. As an investigator, really, you want to do a lot more listening, really, than talking. So that's another reason why I appreciate coming on shows like this, because I get to talk. But he starts going on the microphone, all right, quoting biblical verses, something from Matthew, maybe something from Mark, and then he'd rattle off a whole paragraph of stuff in tongues. You don't know what he was saying. It sounded like when I was like 8 years old playing with a machine gun, and I was going, and then stuff was just coming out of his mouth. Who knows what it was? And I thought it was kind of odd. I was maybe a little embarrassed for him. But everyone else was just, they were focused on this guy. And I was looking around and watching the people focus on Jess Parker. And, about 10 minutes goes by, and maybe a little longer, I forget exactly. And the first lady on the far side starts moaning. And, And people that were, I hadn't noticed, there was a bunch of what I would learn are attendants standing on the outside of the chamber, ready to go and put their hands on you and pray when stuff would come out of you, is what their tradition would be. So that was one lady. Another lady went up in front of me. Then there was a younger man up on the floor, like in his 20s or 30s, up on the floor writhing around. And I'm going like, wow, this is right out of a Hollywood movie. So, having been through a few teachers myself, I decided I was going to participate and not just watch, and start to breathe in the light and breathe out the dark, because I could really feel the energy in the room building. It's like a sports event, okay? If you've ever been to a big stadium or a concert, you can feel the energy, that crowd, build in the room. And so that's what was happening in this church hall. And boy, I breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Next thing you know, one of the matriarch of the church, Cheryl Bryan, is a few rows up or 2 rows up, somewhere up ahead of me, with her hands on this person. I forget if it was a man or woman. She was standing in between us, but I thought to myself, man, I really don't want to attract attention to myself, because I'm just there as an observer, so I'm going to close my eyes and breathe in and breathe out. And so I did that for a few minutes, and next thing you know, she's got her hands on me. And one of my friends has his hand on me, and they're both quoting Bible verses and speaking in tongues, and 5 minutes later they leave, and I keep breathing, but I notice my shirt is almost completely sweated out, and I had never experienced that before. I've been in all kinds of altered states, guided, not guided. I've taken a wide variety of drugs in my day, had all kinds of hallucinations. I have never had anything like this happen to me, and so I found out afterwards, according to their tradition, something came out of me based on their tradition. So I was like, wow. Okay, so this was the confirmation from the story that I heard, which is what got me there in the first place. And literally what's becoming the legend of this church is that, in short, they alleged to have had a magical battle with Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, over one of Anton LaVey's daughters, and through the course of trying to protect this woman, they wound up cutting Anton's silver cord and killing him, although they didn't know they killed him. But the next morning, an apparition appeared, and it was supposedly the other daughter. Anton had 2 daughters, and she was crying and asking why they killed her dad. And the people in Yuba City, Jess Parker and Dave and Cheryl Bryan and the others, were like, well, we didn't know we killed anybody, But apparently Anton LaVey died on October 31st, and I got to go back. I loaned the book to one of the ladies that I'm working with in one of my cases, but they wrote a book called The Serpent and the Savior. So the reason why I'm saying that is because I always forget the exact date. I think it was 2005 is when Anton LaVey died, but don't quote me on that. So if I'm wrong, don't sue me. But he died, according to these church people, on October 31st. If you go look at the death records, it says November 1st. So the Church of Satan has already denounced that what this happened, what these church people claim happened. and it's a bit of a controversy right now. I'm trying to get a hold of Carla LeVay, and I've got word in through somebody who supposedly knows her. I haven't heard back, but I'm trying to research this as best I can to find out if there's anything I can even corroborate with this story. Could be just one of those he said, she said, fascinating legend, myth, but can't really corroborate it. So that's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Well, I think Janet and I can hook you up, but we can't tell you who it is. But we know one of the daughters. She's been on our show a couple of times. People, y'all might remember who she is. But
yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
you mentioned her name, but I don't know if she was she Anton's daughter, TJ, or was she just part of that group? Was that Anton LeVay's daughter?
That's what she said.
Okay, I didn't get the connection,
Janet,
or maybe
that's what the girl that contacted us.
Yeah.
That's who she says she is. She's been on our show a couple of times.
Okay, I'll talk. Been calling me the last few days, so this is very interesting. So I'll connect with her and ask her that. Is that true?
Well,
is she the daughter? I know she said she was involved.
On a show we'll book in a month from now. Give her and him time to absorb coming together, and we'll hook them up like we did this show, maybe a little better.
Yeah, sounds good. Yes,
that'd be a great
show. All right, so that's a piece of the puzzle there that we've been getting on our end. So I know she was involved with the group. That's in was it California? Where was it that they did this? Yeah. Anyway, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, that was San Francisco, and she goes by an alias, but I don't want to even use that because she's really having some issues with who she's been in the past and wanting to be Janet, my friend, because of the Ascension Center and our work multidimensional, and she really respects that, right?
Well, she's waking up, becoming conscious, and she's aware of things from that level all the way up to the global leaders and the power elite and the Illuminati, et cetera, et cetera. So she's contacting us, and I actually have to take the time and talk to her again. So I will do so after sometime, next day or two. And then we'll arrange to bring her back on the show. And we'll have you back, Bret. Maybe you'll have a piece and you guys can share and we'll get another aha.
Yeah, we won't mention this show. So only the people that are tuned in, so Bret Lueder and his journalism and his research discoveries in our paranormal metaphysical world here will know who we're talking about, folks. So now you're in my world. You got a secret to keep, right? Only the shadow knows. So,
well, we don't.
Bret, you're kind
somebody else. That's what we don't. We don't use people's names without somebody else. But if she wants to come on and use her alias name and say who she is and talk about the issue, that's another thing. But we don't reveal her secret stuff. We don't do that with our contactees. So you're safe if you contact us. We're not going to reveal it, but if you want to come on and reveal it, we'll create a platform for you. Okay, back to you, Bret. That's fascinating. So what else would you like to say?
Well, just in the course of learning about this story, of having this experience at the deliverance ceremony, I got a copy of a very hard-to-find Jess Parker book called To Hell with Sarah, and it's like I've heard anywhere from $60 to $80 on Amazon. It's turned out to be one of the best mind control satanic ritual books I've ever read on how to help people with that. And I've read all the Swerdlow material. I've studied Montauk and the Montauk Project heavily. And this from this very humble church guy in a little, as he called it, Yuba Duba, Yuba City out in the middle of nowhere, Northern California. He writes one of the best mind control books I've ever read. And so this story just keeps getting deeper and deeper. His book by itself is enough reason to go to that church and investigate. But Dave and Cheryl Bryan, like I said, wrote the book Serpent and the Savior, and that's about the story of the battle with Anton LaVey. And the two books together at the same church, I got to tell you, as a researcher, I'm just awed by the stuff that's coming out of these guys' mouths and what they write in their books. And as this applies to a UFO investigation, in particular to an abduction case, in the strictest tradition, from fundamental Christians or many different fundamental religious types, all aliens are demons. And so I'm not prepared as a researcher to back that yet, but I got to tell you, what I'm learning, just to realize that maybe some aliens are really demons posing as aliens, that's scary enough. And I think one of my 5 cases, the lady's dealing with that, and the situation just hasn't quite occurred yet where I'm going to try to mimic what Jess Parker and Dave and Cheryl Bryan and others at that church do. And that's basically follow their deliverance technique and, watching Jess work. I recently had the honor and privilege of sitting in with Lori in one of her cases and watching Lori work, Lori McDonald, and trying to get a feel for what goes through your mind, what goes through an individual's mind when they're trying to cast out an evil spirit. Where's your head need to be? It's like you're an actor, right? You gotta put yourself in that place and really mean it. And I think I compare what it was described, how to cast out a demon, to me compares to a mushroom trip, in the sense that once you're on the mushrooms, you're going to ride it out one way or another. You can have a good time or a bad time. It's going to be up to you. But you're going to ride it out no matter what. That's kind of how I see this deliverance technique, is once you get going, you call a being up and you're talking to it. It's not the person. You can tell it's not the person. There's a series of questions you could do. You try to pump it for information, but what it boils down to is they're either going to leave or you're going to cast them to hell. That's this tradition. And in the course of this very simple technique, some of the most incredible stories I've ever heard in all of my ufological experience have come out of this. And, I did an interview with Jess Parker after I read the book, after I went through his deliverance seminar. Supposedly I've been taught now how to cast demons out of myself, which he says really is the only reason for the church. Because there's many different community organizations, and many churches across this great land and across the world are very good at organizing communities, bringing families together, feeding the homeless, that kind of thing. Helping other charities, donating time to hospitals or mental wards or whatever. Many churches do a lot of good work like this, but it doesn't have to be a church to do that kind of good work, right? So what these guys said they learned, and they got hit on the head hard, was that, they thought that's all they were supposed to do, was go around and be charitable, which is noble in and of itself, of course. But they were arrogant, Jess admitted, because they didn't think that they had demons, because they were Christians and they had their nose up in the air to some extent. And they didn't think it could affect them. But really, after the experience with Anton LaVey, and after the experience Jess had with Sarah Heckler, the central figure of To Hell with Sarah, they now believe that the only reason to have the church is to teach people how to cast demons out of themselves. And that the way they see the world is through that lens, that any malady that you could think of is caused by a demon, whether it's us dying of natural causes, or whether it's cancer, or whether you're in a car wreck, or whether your relationship goes sour. You name it, these guys will place it on a demon, and then Jess Parker will get him in a room and start doing his thing, and it always turns out to be a demon. And it's just amazing. In the book, they describe how spirit guides or spirit helpers or even angels, beings that saying they're part of the people, in the end always admit they're a demon. And so I'm just fascinated by that. Could it really be true? Could all this ET stuff just be a bunch of hooey? And we're being led down the path of technology and ET saviors. And I don't know what the truth is, TJ and Janet, but I got to tell you, I'm staying open to to this theory what at one point I thought you would be totally wacko for thinking this. So I've just become my own wacko.
Well, I have the other side, the flip side. You know, it's like in everything in duality, right? This is a duality world. We have to step above that, and that's what I do my best to teach, right? It's being above positive, negative, light, dark, up, down, angels, demons, aliens, ETs, whatever. There is an over-soul or an over-I-am or an over-God above all the other little gods with G's. And it is fun to think about all these things, but we're still not victims. I do not think that we should make people victims, especially in the alien ET UFO community. So a lot of people, especially people that are in the psychological world or in the assisting others, especially in therapy. And we've had Kathy Martin and Denise Stoner, and Kathy has been working on a part for helping experiencers or alien abductees or whatever you want to call them. And we're really getting in the alien ET UFO community into dividing, which I hate to do, but in the duality world that we live in, we do have, everybody admits that we're all thinking positive and negative, up and down, light, dark, angels, demons, whatever. And most of our entertainment, anything you see in entertainment, you have the protagonist, and you will know this as a writer, but look at the people. You have to have, as you said, there's the drama, right? And we create our own drama. And my mother taught me we're the authors of our own life story. And high beings that have lived over and over and over again coming to this world, that's the part I enjoy talking about, multidimensionals, and some people have that consciousness. Have you studied the shaman's laws of consciousness? There's various rules in the laws of the universe, and then people, we start accepting in our community, church or body, if you will, those beings that feel like we're multidimensional. Some of them may be the form of Bigfoot, Yeti, people that come and go, people that can come and disappear. And here where I'm working with a paranormal group, they hide behind trees. Or are they going into the trees? And I thought, when I first heard about Kiwani Lapsaritis, this guy's out of his gourd, okay? But however, as I grew and expanded my consciousness, which is all, you know, to behold the perceiver, right? Physician, heal thyself. I had an experience. I was driving a truck, and I saw one of these. And then on down a few months later, I saw another one, all in the same area over between Missouri and Arkansas. And either I was hallucinating, and I wasn't doing anything. Janet will tell you I'm very straight. I don't drink, I don't drug, I don't smoke, I don't see psychs, I don't take psych drugs. And I had a polygraph and an eval out of Washington, and they'd like me to, you know, keep that straight and narrow because of the kind of work I do and you do. So I kept the real straight side. So it's easier to admit that what I saw wasn't an illusion, okay? But seeing X-Files, they made us look like we were Looney Tunes in entertainment. So, you know, I believe keeping an open mind is important, Bret, but I don't want to make everybody think that aliens and ETs and extraterrestrials and UFOs are all demonic, okay? That's a church when you go there. You know what I mean? The body is the church of all of us, but how we affect everybody else. You know, people say if you have a bad thought, oh, my God, an archon, you've been invaded, you know. It's a bad thought. So those are the archons, you know, and then the Pleiadians and the Orions and the reptilians, you know, and we can go on and on and on, and all these people that live everywhere are coming here and visiting. So we're all using, as you mentioned earlier, epistemology, words. And you said God, and when the beginning was the Word, right? He spoke the Word in the Christian form, right, that you use. So who's to say that all of this wasn't in the beginning? Goes back to the theory of everything, right? Scientific zero, God is everything, God is zero. And then you compare it numerologically, our technology 0101s, and we have a lot of people that are men, and we have a lot of people that are women. And so far, everyone that I've talked to pretty much understands we're born here, we die here. We may have life after life, which a lot of shamans want to believe, and past lives and future lives. And what if all this is just one big illusion? And that's why I wanted to get Janet asked, if we could get into a level of multi-dimensional speaking about all these higher levels that don't have to be about good, bad, light, dark, negative, just get into a real higher level of understanding all these multi-dimensionals in all these other universes, not just in other galaxies. Can you do that? Have you worked with people interdimensionally?
Before we go over, I want to address the issue. Can you hear me? Yeah, I want to address the issue of possession. Do I have the floor? TJ, do I have the floor?
I guess you do, Janet. Go ahead. She wants to address.
Hear me? Okay.
She needs to. This is on her mind. She wants to address this. Let's give her the talking stick, Bret. Okay.
I put a question out there. These all questions, and I don't believe, which means believe, and this is based on my experiences and I've worked with thousands of clients and I am a contactee experiencer. I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of encounters. I think when we say the demon did me or the devil made me, we're not living from our own personal responsibility as a soul going through existence. A lot of people let themselves open to possession, so to speak, by what they consume. They're doing drugs and alcohol and even tobacco. These things open up the crown chakra. There was a group, the Life Beyond Life Institute. There's a group. I read a book, and they were in existence for over 100 years, and they were studying what happened to people when they, drink these take these substances, and their members of their group were on the other side. So they developed a thing like Houdini did, where they could communicate, and they created an array, and so they were able to communicate through computers. It's a wonderful book, and I'll get it. It's over here on the shelf. But what they discovered is people open themselves up to possession, and they, blame the demon. So yes, there are those negative forces, but if they're in your life, somehow you invited it. However, you can always say, go away. Now, if it's fun to go, I've done to these evangelist things. I used to go see Catherine Coleman. My mother wanted to save my soul, and she made me go. And I've seen people, it's very theatrical. It's fun. You get to be the one that's possessed, and you get up and you ride and scream and go on the floor, and it's fun. If you believe it and you enjoy it and it's part of your entertainment, go for it. That's my observation, is that people like to do the evangelical thing, and it's high show business. What was his name? The guy from Saturday Night Live. He did a wonderful spoof on evangelists. It was just brilliant.
The church lady. The church lady.
Not the
Are you doing the church lady?
It was guy. Anyway, I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry, but I'll think of it. It was something like. Anyway, he had the tents, and they went around from town to town, and he was faking all this healing. And at the very end, he actually healed someone that was walking, and he said, I can do it. But it's belief. It's what you believe, and so it comes back to the person, the individual, the personal responsibility, and your own connection to source, and your own integrity, and what do you enjoy, what do you like to do. So with that, being the chooser of where you want to go in existence, does it serve you? Does it serve your family? Does it serve your community? Is it beneficial? Is it helpful? Is it kind? Is it loving? So these people are having fun. When I went to church as a child at a very young age, 13, I realized this is a big social club, and they enjoy, hanging out together. It's a big support system. It's like a tribe, like a family, and they did a lot of functions together, and it served that whole community in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So what else did I want to say? Anyway, I've seen exorcisms. I've participated in many exorcisms, and we use the Bill Baldwin technique. We're not concerned about the person's belief structure, whether they believe in reincarnation or not, whether they believe in ETs or not. That's none of our business. But when we're doing therapy and they have a belief structure, we work with it. So if they have a Christian cosmology, we go with it. If they're Jewish, if they're Muslim, if they're atheists, whatever it is, we take their direction and use their cosmology and their belief structure to help them, get rid of their demons or cure themselves psychotherapeutically. But however it works, we work with it, and it's very effective. So with that, I feel complete. Thank you for listening. Back to you, TJ.
Okay. Well, folks, above duality, whether it's light or dark, there is entertainment value in everything we do, because otherwise we're just here to live, grow, and learn, and we get bored, just like people. There's people we put in our lives for whatever reasons. And Bret is here now, and he is a gentle giant. His name is Bret Lueder, and I understand that's of Irish descent, talking about traditions, cultures, things like that. Your Lueder is Irish, is it not, from what I can understand?
Well, I am of Irish descent, but that's on my mom's side. She was a McDermott.
Okay. And
Lueder's actually a German derivative of a Dutch name, which used to be Van Lude. And I guess wherever my immigrant relatives showed up in old Chicago, they were frowning upon the Dutch. So they made it sound more German and called it Lueder.
Okay, there's some folklore for you, but genealogy as well. Now, folks, we are the company we keep, but we're also the thoughts we think, aren't we? Thoughts are things. That's a little Wayne Dyer pun there, and it took me a while when I was living in Hawaii to ponder that thought with the Mensa group having me over for a cup of tea or a cup of Wayne Dyer. So anyway, that was Hawaii. Loved Hawaii. Lived there many years. Back to you, Bret, with interdimensionality. We've got Aliens ET, Alien Contact Org, and what we're doing with this ACO is for authors, consultants, organizers. Everybody's a free agent to believe what they will. Free will and that level of being here now in physical form. There's many of us that do practice what is concerned many under shaman, and I have to admit, like Janet said, I'm in the Bible Belt. Folks, don't judge me, please. But, the whole world, they look at America as we are predominantly white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, okay? Now, a lot of people in Africa may tell you that they had the first Jesus and he was black, okay? And then you may go over and Jesus, right, that he was a different color, like he was brown over there with, Iraq, Iran, and all their stuff. So watch Ancient Aliens on the History Channel and see what you think. A lot of our friends do. X-Files coming up. But, it's entertainment. Bret, you're an entertaining, gentle giant, I'm told. What do you think of all these levels we're getting into in our alien ET UFO community, where we're starting to separate not just people by what they think and believe, their traditions, but many people are seeing UFOs. They're having groups like 2000, 1997, it doesn't matter what year and time, but we're getting into interdimensionalities and era. I've got a group called ERA-COP. That's for Education Research Association, acronym for ERA, and COP for Community Online People. But it comes across ERA-COP, and we have a magazine, which you'll be in now. But interdimensionally, okay, and you speak to the higher levels of all these beings now wanting to bring all these people together, and all of them, they're priestesses, or they're gods, or they represent Ra, or they represent the Pleiadians, or Alex Collier and the Andromeda groups. And, of course, I have to admit I relate to Andromeda. But also there's higher levels than that, universes. I use universe, multiverse, metaverse, universe, omniverse, alphaverse, and omegaverse for the 7 levels. And then we have dimensions, 13 dimensions, right? Of course, Alex only covers 12. How many interdimensional levels do you cover, Bret, being that you're a researcher? How do you deal with it?
That's a loaded question. When I was studying with my Druid priestess teacher, we would talk about how we have infinitely many faces operating on different timelines all at the same time. Or why I happen to be focused on this particular timeline right now, and I'm not consciously aware of the other ones, I'm not sure. But the knowledge of your many faces is a part of learning the Druid tradition. Really what you're talking about is ascended master kind of stuff, right? The different levels, what level are you at? Are you ascending? Are you on that path? My real experience with that stuff has come through what I'm going to be talking about this Saturday at 10 a.m. at the Ascension Portal to Ascension conference. It's portaltoascension.org. You can go get your tickets. You can buy individual lectures, or you can buy the whole thing, I think, for like $44, pretty cheap. But I'm going to be talking about UFOs in the inner Earth. And when I was writing for UFO magazine, they're now folded, of course. It's unfortunate. They're a really good magazine. I would see this ad. I would be doing different articles on this or that, and I would consistently see this ad, Messages from the Hollow Earth. It was an ad for this book called Messages from the Hollow Earth, and it was by Diane Robbins, and it had that really cool picture of the Earth with a quarter section sliced out, and you could see inside it. And I'd always been fascinated by that picture. And so, at some point, I just said to my editor, Nancy Burns, I said, hey, what's up with this lady? I see her ad in here every time. I'm really interested in the inner Earth. What's going on with it? And so Nancy just lit up and said, we've been trying to get somebody to go up there and interview her and do an article on her. Can you do that? And I absolutely. Don't ask me twice. I paid for the whole trip myself. I called her up, went up there and interviewed her. In the first interview, the room filled with green. She said that was the trees coming in. And so, I don't claim to be a very sensitive person on that level. So I seem to be able to deduce things better than I can, see things. Or maybe I feel things a little bit more than I see things. I kind of want to see things more. But anyway, Diane Robbins, if you're unfamiliar with her work, she channeled Adama, who is supposedly the ascended master that lives in the city beneath Mount Shasta. And that it's called Telos, supposedly. And these are beings that are supposedly 20 to 30,000 years old, and they live in a higher vibration, and they've ascended at least onto higher levels than what we are here in the surface, in what we call normal reality. And they were survivors from the collapse of the Lemurian continent, of which, like Hawaii, maybe the Solomon Islands, Australia, depends on where you put it, are maybe remnants in the Pacific Ocean. So these beings fled to the high ground, which was Mount Shasta even back then, and went through all the stuff we're going through, supposedly, and then wound up going inside the Earth to escape radiation from the sun. And so, I guess when you got that much time, there's nothing left to do except advance yourself. And, incidentally, that's part of the title of my next book, UFOs, Tales of a Heavy Heart, UFOs, Magic, and Impending Doom. The Impending Doom part isn't to play on apocalypse or global cataclysm. It's a somewhat tongue-in-cheek reference I got from J.J. Hurtak that no matter how hard a human being tries not to ascend, everything we do really can be spun in a spiritual nature, because everything we do, good or bad, leads us down that path. So even when we're not trying to, we're actually working towards ascension. So that's where that title comes from. It's just impending doom, no matter how scary we think ourselves are. And I can tell you there's parts of myself that I've experienced that I'm kind of scared of. You've heard people lifting up a van off a person in a car accident or something like that. We all have some kind of latent powers. And so there's this aspect to us, to our consciousness, that we don't normally operate in. If we did, we would be superhuman, as they say. And, this is reflected in the military, trying to create super soldiers and artificial intelligence and robots, that kind of thing. This gets into some real futuristic Ray Kurzweil stuff, maybe a little Stanislav Grof, that kind of area. What's going to happen with the future of humanity? Where are we going with all this stuff? But for me, the whole Ascended Master thing, while I have never seen an Ascended Master, and I don't
consciously know that I've ever experienced an Ascended Master. I can tell you that in my dealings with Diane Robbins, I acquired knowledge. And one of the ways that I acquired knowledge was Diane facilitated a Q&A session between myself and Adama. So I got to ask Adama all kinds of stuff. I asked him about universal laws. I asked him about sex, relationships, their history, you name it, okay? And what came out of that, and it's the crux of what I'm going to be talking about this Saturday, portaltoascensionconference.org, is that there's a public relations campaign going on being perpetrated on the surface by people from the inner earth. And I'm a public relations major. I graduated from Chico State in 2000 with a degree in journalism with an option in public relations. And it turned out, unbeknownst to me at the time, when I enrolled in Chico State, because I just enrolled as a business student like every other kid that was going to college at that time, Chico State was a prestigious public relations school. So here I am learning this weird kind of psychological advertising, marketing kind of thing that I didn't really know anything about, and I was just getting involved in that. I start thinking back to my college days as I do the inner earth research, and I think, wow, these inner earth stories have been regurgitated since time immemorial, and all the stories are relatively the same. They all talk about giants. They all talk about advanced technology, beings with super long life, let's say, cities made out of crystal, endless treasures. There's these stereotypes that go on that are stereotypes because these stories have been told in various cultures around the world for as long as humans have recorded history. There's inner earth stuff in the Bible. There's inner earth stuff in the East Indian culture, inner earth stuff in China. You name it, it goes all around. So I began to realize that when you repeat the same message over and over for thousands of years, let's not even go thousands of years. If you're doing a public relations campaign, I'm working for, let's say, Hill and Knowlton, and I'm trying to save the image of Exxon after they wrecked Prince William Sound with the oil spill, the famous oil spill, okay? Because the captain was drunk. I forget the guy, the poor guy. Anyway, I'm charged with helping their image in the eyes of the public. So what I want to do is I want to create the good image of Exxon and then repeat that over and over for several months until that image sinks into the public. It's mind control, okay? So when I realized that that's what was happening with inner earth traditions, but that it wasn't just going on for months. It's been going on for thousands of years. I'm like, wow, that's a public relations campaign. And the surface people, surface society, is being conditioned strategically towards knowledge of the inner earth, and of course that's towards a meeting at some point. Out in the open, they come to the surface. We have tea, like I was saying earlier, that I want to do with an ET. Let's just be human, right? And sit down and talk and visit. And so, according to Adama, that's what the inner earth people are trying to do for us on the surface, because apparently they can't ascend without us. And they need us to step up our game so that we can all move forward together, including the earth. And I'm no expert on ascension, let me tell you that right now. And I haven't had some of the kind of experiences of even some of my friends, let alone some of the people I interview. Okay, I don't think I've ever seen an ascended master. And Bigfoot did not show himself to me, even though I do think I was standing within 10 feet of him at one point. But for some reason, maybe it was showing me, and I just couldn't see. I'm not ready to see yet. For some reason, I have to read books to get knowledge, do interviews. I have a friend, and one in particular, they just had an epiphany all of a sudden. Now they're like, oh my God, you've been right this whole time. And now they're studying just on a rapid pace. So I'm not sure why I don't experience these higher levels directly or consciously. But I've done enough research with people that do claim to experience them to not discount them, for one, as a basic fundamental
philosophy to realize that there's more than just this dimension right here. And speaking for myself only, once I realized that there's more dimensions and that literally a being could be sitting right in the chair I'm sitting in and I wouldn't know it because it's phased over one or two frequencies or more, but occupying the same space, I realized how far back society in general is, because they don't even really get that basic concept yet in mass. And, that's just one of many fundamental concepts that people that are trying to get through to the surface civilizations of Earth, whether they be inner Earth people or ETs of a variety of kinds, this is what they're up against, man. We are some thick-skulled, mind-controlled critters down here. And, I could see why there could be traditions that would develop in such a climate that talk about faith. Because if you logically understand what's actually happened here on Earth, on that level, there's really no way out. So in order to get out of the box, we're going to have to think outside the box. And, that's going inward to those other dimensions, exploring those other dimensions, pioneering them and coming back and then making a map for people to follow you. And this is what the yogis did. The yogis have been doing this for thousands of years, and they come back and then they write about these experiences so people can follow them and go where they went. I think Janet will resonate with this as well. When human beings learned ritual, it was from the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki did it for mind control purposes, for control purposes. And when you cross that with some of the information from Stuart Swerdlow, he talks about the reptilians quite a bit. He would maintain that the Anunnaki were reptilians, just to mix the lessons and Swerdlow stuff just a little bit, and would say that they built those temples, say, in Cambodia or Vietnam or Laos with huge underground chambers so that when the humans were having the quote-unquote ritual sex, the reptilians were really there feeding off of it. So the whole idea of knowledge of our higher self or an oversoul or levels of ascension that we could achieve would appear to be given to us from the Anunnaki specifically for purposes of control. And where someone like David Icke would come along and say that the Ascended Master stuff is just another trap for those intellectuals that get outside of the normal broad level mass programming. And so I look at that, and believe me, I have 80-plus-year-old Ascended Master friends that just, when I tell them this, they just give me that little smile and they chuckle like I'm a 2-year-old, okay? And I just haven't seen it yet. And so, I haven't seen it yet. That's what I tell you at this point, although I've written a bunch of stuff about it. And it would appear that if surface humans don't get their house in order, so to speak, we're going to be holding a bunch of stuff back. And so that alone you can find in many different traditions. So there's really no arguing with that. We're on some kind of path.
Well, I happen to be right here at the opening to what you're talking about. Right where I live is, have you ever heard of Mammoth Caves? Well, guess what? That's just within 30, 40 miles of me. I ride my motorcycle over there to Mammoth Caves. I've been in there many times as a child and later on and as an adult. And I went to White Sands, New Mexico to visit my uncle, and I got to go in the mountain there. But I also got to see my, third UFO, I guess one would say. I saw one as a little girl, 3D reality. I saw one when orbs when I died, when I was second grade, and I had hepatitis. And so I wheeled my way over there, and I got to go into Carlsbad Caverns, another cave. Now, get this. I didn't know I was going to be a spelunker, right? These are things that just people took me to as part of my my comeuppance, okay? And at one time, I didn't even have an accent. Janet makes fun of my southern accent. But I worked very hard to get that because when I was an investigator traveling the world, I had no accent at all. And it actually worked, but it also made people very leery of me. They didn't want to talk to me. They didn't trust me because they couldn't place where I was from, even though I was an American. And I'm talking people all over the world, but especially here in America. So you know what? It doesn't matter whether you're in the world, of the world, above the world. It's as above, so below. And everything I've learned, we're all individuals, but we're all connected. And that's sort of what I like to think about, is interdimensionally, we're all on a path, and it's our own. It's our own, and free will governs all. I don't know how you feel about free will, but I don't care, who is who. It doesn't matter what color they are. We're all basically the same. And most of the beings I've met have a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, and we're all trying to figure each other out. So I was on Claude Lewis's show in October, and I said, I believe we're all extraterrestrials. So now I'm sticking to that, okay? I'm sticking to that. Janet, she's a historian, and, we're all trying to get together, Bret, for whatever reason, whether it's, the Ascended Masters, the Alien Contact Org, COP, or whatever we're doing on websites. We need to just know each other. And I really appreciate you coming today. Janet wants to talk.
TJ.
Go, Janet.
I need to address this ritual stuff before I said, because that was the question that was put out there, or the last thing, and now I forget what's being said. But I'll just say this about ritual. I had a long series of conversations with Peter Moon, and of course he wrote the Montauk books, and I've hung out with Stuart Swartlow and his wife Janet, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of connection with me and ritual. But I became a Tantra educator at the School of Tantra and the Temple of Tantra, and Tantra is for ritual. Ritual can be used either for dark or light. It's not ritual that's good or bad. It's where are you going in the continuum. So if you set and setting an intention, if you intend to use ritual to connect to source and higher awareness and consciousness and God and whatever, then you will go there, and that's what you will evoke, and that's what you'll experience. The whole continuum is about that. Where do you want to go in the continuum? What do you want to experience? What do you pull into your awareness? What do you pull into your arena? And so we use Tantra, and we go always source. We remember our connection. We remember, our oneness when we decided to come into physical form. I connect with extraterrestrials. Before I do any kind of tantric ritual, I deny any dark forces. The continuum is like the Ouroboros, and it's the snake consuming its tail. You can choose to go to the light side or the dark side. If you want to explore the darkness, eventually all paths go back to source, and to oneness, and to the great Aum and universal consciousness. But I choose to explore the light side, and I interact with light beings, and that's my experience, and that's my reality. And that's, because I'm the chooser. When I was 4 years old, I went on board a ship, and I saw 24 different multiverses that the extraterrestrials in a mothership allowed me to see, and they said, which reality, which version of existence do you choose? And I was my eternal self. I was no longer a 4-year-old child, or I simultaneously was a 4-year-old child and my eternal self. And, they made it very clear with that experience that I'm the chooser. Then I had the same experience about 6 months later. I was orally raped, sent on my body. But once again, I was with my guides and higher beings, the extraterrestrials and interdimensionals and guides, and all those people were pretty much the same energy and the same part of the continuum. And I had a choice: do I come or go? Do I stay with them? Do I go back into my mission? I'm the away team, and I'm an avatar, and this is my mission. I've come here to, work with TJ and Bret and waken up consciousness to a higher level awareness and bring forth the ascension. And I've had that happen 8 times. I happen to be married, or I happen to be the daughter of a woman who was probably like the mother in Arizona Wilders, or Kathy O'Brien's Transformation of America. Looking back on it in hindsight, it was okay. It helped me wake up. I was conscious. I went back and forth from this side to the other dimensions. I know that I'm the chooser. I could stay dead in the dead zone or another body, another existence, another level anytime I choose. And so the one interesting thing, and I'll finish with that, is when I met Stuart Swerdlow, and he came over here to do a series of presentations, and then he was staying at my house, and he said, whenever I mention your name to Janet, she cries. And I go, okay, Stuart, your wife, Janet Swerdlow, cries when you mention my name. And he said, yes. And I said, why? He says, because you're her twin. Okay, I've never met this woman. How am I the twin to a woman I've never met? Anyway, there are rituals that we were a part of, which opened up the continuum in the cosmos to the light side of existence. And going back to Peter Moon, so Peter Moon and I talked about the satanic rituals. They do it on high sacred days, and they do it on ley lines, and they have a dozen or 13. They have the coven. And I said, well, what if we did the tantric rituals? Excuse me, they open up the dark side, and they've taken over existence, and et cetera, et cetera. And so Peter, who studies Tantra, and contacted me, and I contacted him. He wanted to know about Tantra, and I was talking about Manta. He said, he had studied it. He said, yes, we can do the positive tantric rituals, and we don't have to do as many rituals as the negative does, because the light always trumps the dark. So I'm working on gathering those who can do the sacred tantric rituals, are willing to study and learn, and helping us to open the light side of the force of continuum and reconnect us to source. And maybe not going all the way home, because then there's nothing left to do, but at least getting to a higher level of consciousness where we treat each other nicer, because we're not doing such a great job right now, in a constant state of war. Back to
you want to invite this gentleman, Portal of Ascension, Janet. Remember, Ilya came on this show, TJ Morris ET Radio, and we worked with Ascension, of course, and Janet and I have Ascension Center, and I've got Alien Contact Organization, but it's also ACO. You'll notice from our logo, folks, that you'll see by the infamous, if not famous, Bret Lueder around the websites and in the cyberspace culture. So pay attention, and hopefully we can get him back. Janet, are you going to invite him? Folks, everybody's looking at ways we help each other in cyberspace. Webinars are one of them. And I guess it's Ilya. I don't know, Janet, what scours the other guy, or maybe Brett?
Brett, we have 10 minutes left. But, we'll contact Ilya later, but let's focus on Brett. We have like 9 minutes left, okay? Brett, let's put the ball back in your court. What do you want to do with the remaining time? What do you want to talk about? Or do you want to address something we've already said? Or back to you.
I guess I could just plug a few things.
Go for it.
I'm going to be speaking about UFOs in the inner Earth this Saturday, January 15th. You can register at portal2ascension.org. It's kind of a neat concept, because I get to sit at home, put on a nice shirt, but I have the option of, wearing my underwear or maybe a skirt if I feel so inclined, sweatpants or whatever, and so that'll be a new thing for me.
Okay.
But then the people get to do that too. They get to sit at home in their pajamas if they want, sip some tea or do whatever, and get an education. There's going to be a wide variety of speakers. I'm really honored to be part of this panel. You got guys like great investigators like Don Schmidt, or government guys like Nick Pope, or experiencers like Sherry Wild. Of course, William Henry's one of my all-time favorites. These kind of people are also on the lineup. Laura Eisenhower. And then let's see what else I got coming up. I'm going to be speaking for the Paranoia Magazine conference. And Olaf Phillips, the publisher of Paranoia, doesn't know yet if it's going to be in Martinez or San Diego, but that should be in April. I'm not sure if Lorien Fenton's going to be having UFOCon. I heard maybe it wasn't going to happen, so I don't want to plug that just yet until I know. But she's downstairs right now. I can hear her. And let's see what else. Contact in the Desert. There's talk of maybe me doing some emceeing there this year. And, of course, if I get to introduce Graham Hancock, it would be one of my
little highlights of my career, I think.
Oh, well, hire him. Get Desert of the Contact. Listen to me. I'm an ET contactee. I want to see this gentleman meeting Graham Hancock. Is that right? Is that what we want?
That'd be awesome. I'd love to see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm supporting Bret.
Nice.
Yes.
And so I'm also going to be at the New Living Expo again this year. And for those of you that were there last year, you know I was on the panel also, too, with Daniel Sheehan, Laura Eisenhower, Tricia McCannon, Gordon Asher Davidson, and Mike Barr and myself. So that was a real kick. It was the first time I was in front of 800-plus people and an international audience. And it was really funny, TJ and Janet, because I got the microphone from Robert Peralta, the MC, to start to talk, and I told a joke, and only like 3 people laughed. So I handled it well, but it was quite an experience. Hopefully it doesn't happen again, but had a great time. So I got lots of lectures, more and more lectures coming up. I'm also going to be on a radio show Monday morning, and for the life of me, I forget the name of it, but Neil Gower set me up with that Monday morning at 9, and then I'll be on with Monique Lasson, The Matrix of Perception, www.freedomslits.com, Wednesdays from 5 to 7 Pacific time, but I think the times are listed East Coast time, so it would be 8 to 10 East Coast time. That's this coming Wednesday, and we'll be on with William Henry, and I think she's also trying to get Nick Pope on there. So
that's Freedom Slips, our Freedom's Lips, and that is our famous Mike Ringley, folks, here from Kentucky, one of our good buddies right here in Kentucky. For those of y'all that don't know it, that's Revolution Radio, where I was doing a show on Saturday called Cosmos Connection, and Janet does Sacred Matrix. And
right.
After my husband's illness, I just hadn't got back with Mike, but I've got some great people trying to get me lined back up on a show over there. But, you know, folks, there's just so much time in this universe with people like Bret. Bret's out there a mover and a shaker, man. He's making it happen. He's in California. It's where things are happening. It's the movers and the shakers. But you know what, Bret? We want to get you guys all lined up to do stuff over here on the East Coast. So tell people how those webinars work. You're using Skyping in and Zoom, or do you know?
You know what? There's a certain website that he's using as a portal. And I think I'm going to be using Skype to call into the portal. So it does involve Skype, but I'm not exactly sure how it works. I've got your email, though, right?
I hope so. tjmorrisagency@gmail.com. TJ Morris Agency.
I'll send you the link.
Okay.
And you can look at it yourself. It's one of those, it's a specialized website that just hosts webinars. So.
Oh, okay. There's plenty of them out there, folks. Lots of them. Janet and I have used Zoom. We've used Google GoToMeeting. There's all kind of different things. YouTube has a place where you can just do your meetings right on YouTube, by the way. I don't know if you people know that, but anybody's got a channel, look it up. You can have people come right there and see you. But I think Skyping in a lot of people. Webinars is the new happening thing. So we can sit in Bret's underwear, if you so chooses, and whatever you want. So, all right, well, we've got just a few minutes left. How do we get in touch with you, Bret? And I'll let Janet mention how to get in touch with her and me.
Okay. My email is lueder@esotericguide.com. That's LUEDER at ESOTERICGUIDE.com. Lueder@esotericguide.com. I also got a Facebook. Just type in Bret Lueder. I think I'm the only one there.
There's a whole bunch of Bret Lueders. They make sure, bunches of them. You just have to, with 2 T's I was trying to find Bret Lueder, and I finally had to realize you were a friend of mine. But I was on one of my other Facebooks. I've got all kind of Facebook accounts out there, folks. So just try to find me. But Bret Lueder, B-R-E-T, by the way, L-E-U-D-E-R. Okay.
It's L-U-E-D-E-R.
L-U-E-D-E-R. That's why.
So, I did have a website. It got hacked. I was on Sean David Morton's show last summer, and the next day my website got hacked. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but it hasn't been back up. So that'll happen eventually, I'm sure.
Oh, sure. Well, we'll have you out there on our websites just for your own notice. Janet's got you on AquarianRadio.com. She's got a whole bunch of pictures off your Facebook, open source. and Google Images, and I've got you on tjmorrisradio.com. So that's tjmorrisradio.com, Bret. And so, yeah, we've got you other places. I've got you on, my company is TJ Morris. Yeah, that's tjmorrisacir.com, folks. I've had it, ACIR, since 78, and that's my assured confidential investigative reports for all you people that have to stay secret. And for those of you that are public and want publicity, I've got that handled too with all this tjmorrismedia.com and tjmorriset.com. Just depends on what floats your boat and what track or what genre you're interested in. We also have Authors Club, and we help people around the world with their book publishing. And Bret, you have your own publishing company, or you're publishing?
Yeah, I pitched the first book to 30-plus publishers. They didn't know how to categorize it, so I wound up forming my own small company just to get it published. So, yeah, House of Lueder Publishing.
Great. So, folks, we'll hopefully see you again here soon. We're going to have Bret Lueder back. Don't forget, January 15th, please tune into Portal of Ascension with our many friends. This webinar, it's called a webinar, and we're all learning how to do them out there. You can pick and choose the people you want to do them with. Janet Carolesson with Aquarian Radio, and we'll be back here tomorrow night with Bill M. Tracer for tomorrow night's Ascension Center and Ace Metaphysical Institute. Okay, Janet, what you got?
Okay, good night. Aloha. Thank everybody.
Thank you guys both. I really appreciate being on. We'll talk to you guys both soon.
Thank you, Bret.
Tell
Thank you,
Lorianne
everybody.
and everybody we aloha. Bye-bye.
Okay, tell Janet. Janet says tell Lorianne and everyone. We'd like to have Laurie McDonald on soon again as well.
Sure.
All right.
You had her on once already? Okay.
I have it. Janet has.
Okay.
But we'll take a break.
All right.
Thanks.
I'm going to sign off. I have to go to another appointment. Love and blessings and aloha.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Top of the world to you. I'm going to play Top of the World.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay.
Earning an executive MBA at Georgetown isn't the path of least resistance, but it does come with the greatest reward. Benefit from our strong alumni network, renowned faculty, DC location, and global residencies. Get started at choosegeorgetown.com/EMBA.